Hello, Zuko here. It is like 3 a.m. now, and I tried to film this earlier, and I made it halfway through, which took 40 minutes because my dogs were both very unsettled and being terrible. Then I needed to calm down and refocus. So I finished the book that I was reading. So it's my November wrap-up. I'm filming this on like the 26th. Might be reading a couple more books. Doesn't matter. I need to post this for Tuesday, so we're filming it now. I have read like 20 something books, and I don't have all the physical copies right here right now because I put them away because I was frustrated. So we're gonna just put a thing. You'll see them there. You know how it works. This isn't your first rodeo. I do not believe I have DNF'd any books this month, which is kind of exciting. The first book that I read this month was A Spindle Splintered by Alix E. Harrow. This is the first in, I don't know if they're like companion novellas or if it's like a series, but the first one is a story about a girl who is dying. She has a rare and incurable illness that nobody has lived past 21 with. So on her 21st birthday, she knows she's not getting another one. She has spent her life like obsessed with Sleeping Beauty and the stories and retellings of Sleeping Beauty because she feels the kinship to a young girl who is cursed to like sleep forever. Kind of like death, similar. So on her 21st birthday, her best friend buys her a spindle and she pricks her finger, and when she does, she ends up going to an alternate universe with another Sleeping Beauty who needs to be saved. I hope that wasn't super spoily. I don't think it was. I enjoyed this novella more than I expected to. It was fast-paced because it was a novella. There were queer side characters. There was a chronically ill main character. It was very fun and I enjoyed it, so I gave it 3.5 to 4 stars. Then I read Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. This is the copy that I have, and this is a copy I'm going to show because it's prettier. So this book kind of follows a like interview with a vampire slash what's that one that everybody likes that I haven't read? Name of the Wind. Kind of that vibe of the main character is telling his life story to another person, and you get kind of the perspective of the main character as he's telling the story. You get him as a child discovering all of the things about his life, and as an adult trying to stop the end of the world, kind of. I think it's Gabriel de Leon. He's like the lion. You know, it's a whole thing. I'm gonna say a lot of people have complaints about the amount of swearing in this book, which I didn't notice. People were like, this is unrealistic, it makes it hard to read, like I don't like it. I'm like, do I just say fuck so often that like I don't even hear it anymore? Probably. Like I feel like I would be a character written where people would be like, this was excessive and you didn't need to do that and it's unrealistic. That's my one defense for the book. Otherwise, there are like quite a few graphic to semi-graphic sex scenes, and they're like all with minors. They're between minors and other minors, but didn't like what? J. Kristoff, explain why you just wanted to write a bunch of sex scenes between teenagers, because that was weird. There was also like, even when the main character was like an adult, I feel like he talked about boobies too much because he is an adult looking back on his childhood, right? So he has the adult frame of mind as he is telling this story about his childhood, and he's still like, boobies. And I'm just like, didn't like that. There was a lot of like sexualization of I feel like all the female characters. I don't know. I didn't love it. It felt very misogynistic, and it was like kind of marketed as queer, but it wasn't really. It was like there was some queer side characters. So that was, yeah. I gave this like a 2.5 to 3 stars. It was fine. It was really long. Like it's a 700-page book or something. It's this guy. It's a chonker. It apparently has art in it, and I don't know, maybe I missed out by listening to the audiobook. Ooh, it does have art in it. That's pretty. Maybe, yeah, you know what? I don't know. Is this worth? Oh, it's signed. Is it twice? Did I get it? Hi, my copy has 2 signature pages. Yep, definitely never opened this before. That's kind of funny. Too bad it's ugly. Yeah, it was just fine. I think I'm gonna continue on with the series because I already committed like 26 hours. I listened at double speed, so like 13 hours maybe to this book. I'm gonna see where it goes, but it was just fine. And other people have a lot of really valid criticisms of this book, and if you want to know more, I would suggest looking into that. Then I read The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. So this is I want to say African, but I could be wrong, inspired fantasy. which is set in a world where kind of after their periods have started, girls can develop like impure blood, right? So in this village at 16, they're all tested. A priest or whatever like cuts their arm and does a bloodletting, and if their blood flows red, they are pure and human, and if their blood flows gold, they are demons and evil, and they are bled for their gold blood to be sold and made into things, I think. And there is a new program at like the castle, a royal city, to take these girls who are impure and demonic and train them to fight dark forces, kind of. So Deka is sent there, and she finds out that she has a specific kind of power that is very helpful in this, and she starts to become like a leader in this group. I enjoyed this book. Like I did. I feel like a lot of the YA fantasies I'm reading right now are kind of starting to blend together, and this one did stand out. But like a lot of YA books, and I think I'm just starting to outgrow YA, it felt very like on the nose. There was, I feel like, less symbolism and more, it was just made very clear that everyone hates women in this world, you know? It wasn't symbolic, it was literal. And I don't know, I guess I'm starting to look for things in my books and hope that everything isn't so straightforward. But again, that's a me growing up problem and not a YA book problem. But yeah, I enjoyed this book, and I think I gave it 3 stars. Am I correct? Yes, I gave it 3 stars. My iPad is here. Then I read Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. So this book follows a girl, Vanya, who is the goddaughter of Death, the goddess, and Fortune, the goddess. And she was, like, I think sold by her mother. And she grows up as a servant, essentially a slave to this, like, rich noble family. And she ends up as the, like, lady servant to their daughter, who is her age. And they grow up kind of best friends. One day, Vanya steals the other girl, Giselle's, identity and becomes the lady of the house, I guess. And she is being forced now to marry the man that Giselle was supposed to be marrying, who is terrible. And it's a whole thing. I really like this book. First of all, the cover, beautiful. Look at it. Look at it. I don't actually have a physical copy of this book, so I couldn't show it anyway. And that makes me very sad. But I think it's the Illumicrate book for November. And so it should be here, hopefully, by the time this video comes out. I loved that the main character and their love interest were both demisexual. As an asexual person, I love seeing people on the like asexual kind of spectrum. There was a queer romance on the side. It was good, like, weird folklore mythology stuff. I don't know. I really liked the world building. I liked the characters. I liked the story, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Nice. Then I read A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. This is a queer dark academia book which follows a main character whose name I do not remember, going back to her weird prestigious boarding school after taking a year off because she witnesses her girlfriend dying. And as she comes back, she meets a strange girl who is a critically acclaimed writer who is working on her second novel, and things kind of twist together with them. It reminds me of the movie Like Minds, which I think has a different name in the States. It has Toni Collette and Eddie Redmayne and Tom Sturridge in it. I really like that movie. If you liked this book, I would suggest watching that movie. They had very similar vibes. I don't want to spoil anything about this book, but I did enjoy it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The one thing that like kind of bothers me, as someone who's like very, I have morals, right? Like it's this is right and this is wrong. There was like no consequences for wrong actions, and like that kind of bothers me, but yeah, I liked it. Then I read Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I'm hoping that this isn't another situation like The House on the Cerulean Sea, where it's like this really cute, lovely book, and then you find out that it was like romanticizing the fucking kidnapping of Indigenous children and sending them to residential schools. Like, I hope this doesn't have like a secret dark inspiration to make this like cutesy book, you know? But this book follows Wallace, who is a shitty capitalist lawyer businessman, and he dies right away. And he is taken by a reaper, who is a person whose job is to take a dead person from, you know, their soul from wherever they are to a place where they can cross over and meet kind of a person who is there to help you work through things before you pass over, so you don't have like unfinished feelings and stuff. So she takes him to this place, which is I believe called Sharon's Crossing, and he meets the man there whose job is to help them cross over, named Hugo. And this is a queer fantasy romance, so you can imagine how that turns out. I really liked this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Please don't let it be like secretly evil. Like, TJ Klune writes some really cute adult books, and it hurts me that the House of the Cerulean Sea is based on such a nasty thing and put in such a like cutesy way, you know? I really hope that that's not the case with this one because I really enjoyed it. Then I read Are You Listening by Tillie Walden. So this is a graphic novel that follows a mid-20s girl who is going on a road trip to see family, and a late teens, I want to say 18 maybe, year old girl who is kind of trying to run away from home, and they end up road tripping together. This book is queer, but the two characters, their age difference is weird, that there's no romance between them. But I have trouble with graphic novels on a good day because I feel like you don't get enough insight into the characters, and the storytelling is harder for me to follow. Like, I'm not a big visual storytelling person, I guess, with graphic novels and stuff. I prefer actual novels so that you get the full picture. And especially like all of the scenes were at night. Most of this novel or graphic novel takes place at night. I just found it really hard to follow. I didn't really know or understand what was happening. I didn't like it. It was too confusing. Like, I don't know if other people found it made a lot of sense to them, but I couldn't tell you what was going on most of the time. Like, it was very nonsensical in a way that was never explained, and in a way that I didn't find that was done well. So yeah, there was that. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. Then I read Gilded by Marissa Meyer. This is my first Marissa Meyer book. Yes. Sorry, I was making sure that's who wrote it. This follows a girl who was blessed by the god of lies, or goddess of lies. And so she is very good at weaving stories and making people kind of believe her. And in this world, it's, I think, based on Germanic folklore and fairy tales. There is the hunt on, I think, a solstice, winter solstice, and the Earl King, who is a big evil kind of fae king, I want to say, is out hunting other like fairies and creatures. And she hides 2 people who are trying to run away from him, and happens to run into the Earl King as well. And she lies to him and tells him that she is spinning straw into gold, and that she was blessed by the goddess of weaving instead of the goddess of lies. And because she was blessed by the goddess of lies, the Earl King believes her and lets her go. And then the next day he's like, wait, what the fuck? Why did I do that? So on the next full moon, he goes and kidnaps her and is like, spin all this straw into gold or I'll kill you. And she's like, fuck. She can't do that. That's not her power. And she's like, fuck, I can't do this. That's not my power. And she happens to meet something that's living in the castle, someone that can. And they immediately fall in love for no reason, and it's very mediocre, and I hate the insta-love. And the rest of the book kind of, for the most part, follows her going back home, and then her coming back, because it's the full moon, and the king calls her back, and then she goes home, and then the next full moon. It's very repetitive. So this is a Rumpelstiltskin reimagining, retelling. So I believe Rumpelstiltskin is not a long story. And Marissa Myers was like, okay, I'm going to take this not long story, I'm going to make it 500 pages, I'm going to pad the hell out of it, and then I'm going to make it a duology, because this is like the trend now. Has anybody else noticed that, where they're just like, let's pad the hell out of one book and make it 2 books and pad the hell out of both? Like, this should have either been 1 500-page novel or 2 250-page novels. There so much unnecessary shit happened in this book, and I didn't like it. The romance made me so mad. The pacing was bad. It felt so padded. I was getting so bored by the end because the same things kept happening. I didn't care about any of the characters. So I give this book a 2 out of 5 stars. I don't think I'll be picking up any more of Marissa Meyer's books, but I do have this beautiful copy. I ordered it from the Fairy Loot, and before I had read it, clearly, because I think this book came out in November, and the pre-orders were like in September. Yeah, so I have this beautiful copy, and now I'm just like, fuck. Next, I read Vespertine by Margaret Rogerson. Here's the normal copy. Here's the Fairy Loot copy that I paid for. Okay, I have no complaints about this book, right? I read it. It was fine. I don't remember anything about it. It was so forgettably generic YA fantasy that I don't know anything that happened. I read the whole thing. Like, I listened to the audiobook, but like, I was paying attention the whole time, and I couldn't name a character. I couldn't tell you the plot. I think someone dies at one point. There are nuns. It was so forgettable and so generic. So again, I have this beautiful cover that I paid for, but it's going to be on my shelves, and I paid money for it, and I just didn't like it. So that was really fun. I gave this book like a 2.5 star because it wasn't bad, it was just forgettable. So it's like very middling. Like it wasn't so bad I can say anything about it. I can rant about Gilded because I was fucking mad about it. I can praise Little Thieves because I really liked it. I have nothing to say about this book. Nothing. Then I finally read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue because I got this collector's edition, which is beautiful, and it has sprayed edges on the side. Let me just, like, it's got sprayed edges. It's got, like, I don't want to really crack it. It's got illustrated end pages. It's got colored art in the middle. There's a little gold bookmark. Like, it was beautiful. So I ordered this after DNFing Addie LaRue last year with every intention of picking it back up. So when I had this edition, I was like, okay, I'm gonna finally read it because I bought this pretty edition and I'm not allowing myself to spend like money to buy pretty editions of books and then not read them. That's silly. You know, I've been disappointed. So if you don't know, I feel like everyone's read Addie LaRue already. This is about a girl who in like the 1700s makes a deal with a god that she wants to be free. And the god's like, get fucked, I guess, and makes it so that she lives forever. And so she has freedom. And nobody can remember her after they've seen her. So if she leaves their line of sight, they stop remembering who she was and she has to reintroduce herself. Which is very fun because she forms relationships with people who don't realize that they're forming a relationship with someone the next day. You know? Like they wake up in bed with someone and have no idea who she is. And I don't know. I liked the premise. I thought it was fun. It kind of went where I thought it was going, but like, I liked the ride. It's pretty well done. I gave this like a 3.54 stars. Then I read A Marvellous Light by Freya Marske. This is a adult fantasy queer romance, which follows a sunshine character and a grumpy character. And the sunshine character is just like a rich man who does a lot of sports. He's like a sunshine jock. And he ends up just kind of accidentally getting put into this government job position in a like sector that deals with magic, and he did not know magic existed before this. He's very caught off guard, and as he is walking home, someone thinks that he must have something important, and they try to rob him and they curse him. So his new co-worker, who accidentally showed him magic because he thought that this man would have known, has to kind of try to uncurse him and break the curse. So he takes him to his family home, and they have their grumpy sunshine dynamic, and it's like a whole thing. I wasn't expecting graphic sex scenes in this book. Personally, for me, if I want to read like a story, I will read a novel. If I want to read porn, I will go out of my way to find porn. I don't really like those things overlapping. I listen to audiobooks and I don't like headphones. So like, I don't want those things overlapping. That's not a problem with the book. That's a me thing. Obviously, I didn't like change the rating because I was like, ew, there was sex in this adult book. Because I'm a fucking adult. Like I can handle that. That's not unexpected, you know? That's not a crime. But it did catch me off guard. I also found that this book spent way too much time at the grumpy character's manor, like with his family home. There was like, I feel like a third of the book was dedicated to them being there at least, and it made the plot really lacking for a long time. But when it did pick up, I really enjoyed how it went, and I'm curious to see how this series keeps going because it's the first in, I don't know, a duology, a trilogy, a whole series? I don't know. Am I gonna have to read more explicit sex scenes? Probably. That's fine. I can do it. So yeah, I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read You're Never Weird on the Internet Almost by Felicia Day. I owned it. I wanted to read it. I actually really liked it. I don't think I'm gonna keep it because it doesn't have any like sentimental value, and I'm trying to kind of get rid of all of my nonfiction that doesn't mean something to me. Like I don't think I'm ever gonna read that again, but I did give it 4 to 5 stars. Then I read Dark and Shallow Lies by Ginny Myers Sain, and I thought this was queer and it wasn't, which was sad. But this takes place kind of like in the marshy bayous of, I want to say like New Orleans or like somewhere around there. Lots of crocodiles and shit. There's one that's named Willie Nelson, which is fun. This follows a main character who, after her mother has passed, she spends her like school year with her dad, I think in New York, and then she comes back in the summers to live with her grandma. And there are 10 kids who are all born the same summer, and I think they call themselves the Summer Kids, and they are all super close, except this year, one of them, who was born on the same day as her and was known as like her soul twin, she has died, and there's a whole mystery surrounding that. I don't know, I liked this book. I actually wasn't expecting to like this book. As soon as I realized it wasn't queer, I'm like, oh, am I gonna be so bored? And there are so many like small town mysteries where it's just like super predictable and boring. But I actually liked this one, so I think I'm gonna be keeping it around for a while. Though there's a scene where a boy puts his hand on the main character's leg and she's like, I almost passed out. I'm like, straight people, are you okay? That's weird. That's really weird. That's not normal, just for the record. Just for the, like, if someone just like, and you're like, huh, like, ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot. Are you okay? I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Girls Are Never Gone by Sarah Glenn Marsh. This follows a girl who is a podcaster. She is doing her own podcast after breaking up with her boyfriend, and they had a ghost hunting series together. She is volunteering to restore an old house with, like, some other people who are restoring this house that has a haunted past where a girl drowned, I think. I don't remember. This book is queer. I wish there were more podcast elements. Like, that was one of the best parts of Sadie by Courtney Summers, I think. Was all of the podcast elements, and this book I think really didn't take advantage of that. There was, like, I guess, a podcast kind of like prologue and epilogue, but like that's kind of it. I liked that the main character had diabetes and a service dog, though she acknowledges that her service dog isn't actually like a well-trained service dog, and I didn't love that as someone who is disabled and in theory was intending on training my dog as a service dog, but at this point I'm unclear, because I've heard having terrible social anxiety and having a service dog don't mix well because you have to constantly defend your team, and I don't know if I can do that. I also just, I don't know, the mystery of this one didn't feel horror-y enough to me, and I was just disappointed by the lack of like fun podcast stuff. Like, one of my favorite things about The Dead in the Dark by Courtney Gold, I think. Are these all Courtney's? I think they are. Like, I liked that their parents, the main character's parents, were ghost hunters, and I feel like there wasn't enough ghost hunter bullshit. I don't know, I feel like if you're gonna add like some kind of form of media into your book, like that should be a bigger selling point, you know? I don't know, that's just me. Otherwise, I found this like a pretty bland book, and the main character acted like having diabetes was like the worst thing that could happen to her. And I didn't like that either. She's like, I can overcome anything now because I've overcome diabetes. And it's like, kids are diagnosed with diabetes and can handle it. Why are you acting like it's like this huge dramatic thing? Imagine if I went around being like, I can handle being disabled, I can do anything. Like, that's weird, right? I don't know, it's weird to me. Let me know if you're diabetic and you're like, no, I agree, I handle my diabetes so I can do anything. It sounds stupid. Like, it sounds like I'm making fun of people with diabetes. I'm kind of making fun of the book, but like not other disabled people, you know? I gave this like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I know I'm doing a lot of 0.5s and I keep rounding up because I'm nice. Okay, we're almost done. Then I read 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. This is a, I guess, like, is it 6 Storks? Six, something like that. It's a retelling of an old story. This follows a girl who finds out that she can do magic when she makes one of her paper cranes come alive, and then she is taught about magic by a dragon, and then she finds out that her stepmother is magic, and her stepmother curses all of her 6 brothers to become cranes and sends her away, tells her if she makes, like, if she talks at all, that her brothers will die, and puts a bowl over her head so nobody can recognize who she is. And the bowl's just there the whole time, which I thought was kind of funny. This book, I don't know, this was an interesting book, and I think I want to continue on, but mostly I read this book because I want to order the UK cover, but I didn't know if it's worth it, and I still don't think I, like, want it that bad, you know? Like, again, this just felt very generic YA. Even though the setting was beautiful and, like, it was really well done, I still just felt like everything felt surface level and predictable. Again, that's probably a me problem. I may or may not continue on with this series. Like, it was good, but it wasn't memorable, you know? So I gave this a 3 to 5 stars. Then I read Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. And this is a weird horror novella. Looks like this. I didn't like it. I don't know. I didn't feel scared. It felt weird. Like, the characters just went, yep, guess this is happening. I don't know. There was no, like, fear. It just, I don't know. It felt like a no sleep story, you know? It felt like an unprofessional writer trying to scare me, and I wasn't scared. I don't know. Like, recommend me scary books, maybe, because I feel like I keep saying that, and nobody gets this far in the video. But, like, if you see this, recommend me books that, like, actually really scared you, because this just wasn't it, you know? I like that the main character was just casually queer though. That was fun, but like I didn't like or care about any of the characters, you know? I couldn't even really tell you what was going on. Gave that 2 out of 5 stars if you're wondering. Then I read Peter Pan by M.J. Barrie, which didn't age well. It's a lot of talk of the Redskins and Indians. I've never watched Peter Pan. Like, this is my first time consuming actual Peter Pan media. I read Lost in the Neverwood by Aidan Thomas, which was like a bad reimagining. I hated that book. You can watch me rant about it everywhere. I'm probably also going to be in my top 10 least favorite books of the year video, so you can see it there too. That'll be out soon. But I'd never consumed actual Peter Pan, so I did that. And it was interesting to see where it all came from and where it was all inspired. Yeah, the character of Peter sucked, and I know that was intentional. He was supposed to suck, but I just didn't care about any of the characters. Maybe this, I don't know. I just didn't like, I didn't love it. It was fine. I'm gonna pass this book along to somebody else. I'm sure if I read this when I was younger, I would have had nostalgia for it. Like, I'm sure Alice in Wonderland, to people who've never read it before, they'll read it and be like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, no, it's so good. So I'm sure that like people who are really into Peter Pan growing up will really like this book, and I just don't have the nostalgia for it, so yeah. Then I read All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman, I believe. This is pitched as like the Hunger Games meets the Triwizard Tournament in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire meets I don't know what the fuck else. So in this world, there are 7 magical families in this town who each pick someone to compete every 20 years in this weird high magic ritual thing where they all have to go kill each other. It's a thing to secure like the super powerful magic for their family for the next 20 years. And then you're like, okay, this sounds like really good. And the first like quarter until they end up in the like, I don't know, the arena, I guess, like I liked that. I'm like, this has a lot of promise. But imagine if instead of anything happening in the Hunger Games, okay, you picture the Hunger Games, they're in the arena and all of them just stop and they talk to each other. And there's no one manning the games, right? They're just in this field talking to each other. And they just have the same conversation over and over for like 8 hours. That's the book. How Hunger Gamesy is it if like nobody dies and there are no real stakes? Because it's not. Even like the Triwizard Tournament, at least there are like a bunch of tasks for them to do, right? Like there's things, there's action, there's like stuff to be nervous about, and this is just like 7 kids. This was also marketed as queer, and maybe I just missed it, but it felt like only one of the characters was queer because he kept mentioning like one of the other characters being good looking, but the main relationship was between as far as I could tell, cis dude and cis girl, so it was very like at least straight passing and very boring. Their relationship sucked. I didn't care about it. Like I didn't care. And then the like secondary relationship, I guess they were exes, is between also another, I believe, cis boy and cis girl. So the only relationships are very like, the relationships themselves are heterosexual even if the characters aren't, you know? And the main there's the interesting character, his name is Alistair, and he was set up to be like such a good angsty sad boy, right? And then he immediately gets into the arena and just is like, I'm a good guy. And everyone's like, we don't trust you. And he's like, no, I'm a good guy now. And I don't know, was he supposed to have an arc? Did he have an arc? No. No. It was dumb. He was a shitty character. This book was bad. It dragged on for so long with nothing happening. I didn't like it. I was so, like, I'd been looking forward to this book. I was excited about this book, and it was so disappointing. So I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars, and a thumbs down, and a sad face. Okay, now we're on to the fun part. So, back in 2017, I got really excited. I watched Problems of a Book Nerd, Cece's video of, like, anticipated queer releases that year, and I saw The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, and I was, like, excited. I'm like, this is it. Like, this book sounds so fun. I think it was the first time I bought and read a book specifically because it was queer. And now this whole shelf behind me, top to bottom, is all queer books. And it started with like that one. And it was so exciting. I loved it. I read it, 5 stars. Great. I reread it a couple days ago. And I loved it. It was great. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I like the characters. I like the story. I think it moves at a good pace. I've found that a lot of books this reading month have had a lot of pacing issues, and this one doesn't. I still love the characters, Monty and Percy, and Felicity. I'm still so glad that Felicity wasn't just like subjected to being the like shitty younger sibling, you know, because that happens a lot. If you don't know, this book follows a character named Henry Montague, Monty, who is about to go on his like rich boy tour of Europe where he gets to be a pain in the ass in other countries. And he brings his best friend Percy, and he has to take his sister Felicity, they are supposed to be dropping her off at a fun school for ladies where she can learn her manners. And it is supposed to be his and Percy's last hurrah before Percy has to go away. And you find out later where that would be. And instead, Monty ends up stealing something that was important, and they get chased, and they run. And so their whole plan is stopped. And I really like this book. This book is queer. Monty is queer. Everyone is queer. It's so good. I had 5 out of 5 stars. And then I read the sequel, which follows Felicity, which is Monty's sister. And she is trying to become a doctor. That's all she has ever wanted. She wants to study medicine, but she is not taken seriously as a woman in the, I believe, 1700s. They're like, women can't be doctors. Like, we don't even want to hear the word menstruation. This is disgusting. Women don't belong in the medical field. They're hysterical. So Felicity goes on a journey to try and find someone who's going to take her seriously as a doctor. She ends up reconnecting with her childhood best friend, who she had a falling out with when her best friend decided, I like pink girly things. And Felicity was like, that's stupid. And they reconnect, and they end up going on an adventure together. And I really like this one too, but it wasn't my favorite. But Felicity is asexual. As an asexual person, love that. Love asexual representation in books. And obviously there wasn't like a word for it back in the 1700s, so she's never like, I'm asexual, but it's very clear, you know? So yeah, 4.5 out of 5 stars for book 2. Oh, somewhere in there I read The Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky, which is a novella that was initially a pre-order perk if you pre-ordered A Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, which I don't think I mentioned is the second book. And The Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky was eventually published as a novella. It was good. It was cute. Gave it 4 to 5 stars. Great. Okay, then I read the third book, which just came out. It is The Nobleman's Guide to Shipwrecks and Scandal. No, A Nobleman's Guide to Scandal and Shipwrecks. And this follows their younger brother, who was a baby when Felicity and Monty left. And he grew up not knowing he had siblings. And one day he accidentally runs into Monty, and a whole thing ensues when he's trying to figure out like more information about like how and why his mother has died. And he runs into his brother and is like, what the fuck, I have siblings, this is wild. And Adrian also deals with debilitating like generalized anxiety disorder, again not named because that was not like a thing back in the day. I love this book. I cried. I have debilitating anxiety. It's not clear. If I haven't made the fact that I'm disabled clear, hello, I have terrible anxiety. I related to Adrian's struggles with anxiety a lot, and I really loved this, and I cried at the end. And like happy tears and like sad tears because it was over, but it was such a good ending for the series, and I loved this book. And I gave it 5 stars. So yeah. It's officially 4 o'clock in the morning. Just wanted to film this and tell you all the books that I read in the month of November. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go to bed now. But, I mean, I just finished that book like an hour ago. I wanted to get it in there. I wanted to squeeze it all in. I think this maybe, hopefully, was a better recording than the last one. I had to cut out, I would have had to cut out like at least 20 minutes of me fussing with the dogs last time. And it was not even, like, I wasn't half done. So this is probably a better recording than the last one. And yeah, let me know if you have read the Montague siblings books. I listened to the audiobook and apparently that's how it's pronounced. And if you loved them down below, let me know what you read in November down below. And yeah, I will see you whenever I do my next video.